what you hear about machine learning and generative AI. And generative AI is kind of just a piece underneath this all. But machine learning and what we're talking about there is the ability for computers or algorithms or whatever it may be to predict something in the future. That's as simple as a slope. Y equals x squared is theoretically a machine learning curve, right? You're able to predict then out according to y, or according to x actually. So on the other piece of that is really to complication. So if you hear people talking about Python or Julia or R, these are languages, procedural languages, and that have allowed what we see, like the microsegmentation of marketing and things of that nature, to be so prevalent. That's been in industries for 10, 15 years at this point. It's not net new. And quite honestly, it is more useful and more return comes out of that level of applications of this larger world here, away from what we're now going to chat about mostly, which is generative AI, which really the world knows mostly about because of OpenAI and the release of the chat wrapper on top of that large language model. The large language model that looks like it is actually advising us, but really is just trained on predicting the next words and so on and so forth. And that was originally how it occurred 2 years ago. What has happened since then is the rapid release of organizations like Google, Gemini, for those that are aware. In France is Anthropic and Claude. In China, most recently, that kind of shifted this paradigm even further, is DeepSeek R1. So the point that I'm highlighting there and why I'm trying to get to and naming these models is the model development piece, right? So we did the hardware piece, the model development piece. The consensus for those that are building businesses like yourself is there's always going to be a better model. It's probably going to come out every other week. So don't hard code to a model. Make sure you're flexible in the ability to adopt the next latest and greatest model, because at the end of the day, you hard code something on, say, OpenAI 3.5, and now 0.3 mini is one of theirs, and it does things faster, better, and cheaper. You're already disrupted, right? You already at least have created an opportunity to be disrupted in whatever business it is that you're looking to apply this. Someone is able to go faster and better and cheaper. Think of it like Ethereum, Solana, Sue, right? If you think of it in the crypto layer one worlds, someone's always going to, in the speed at which this is all happening, don't bet on the model is basically the advice that I would advise you. And you get to a certain point and around the models that you need to know which ones do well in which scenario, which makes it super complicated when you're selling what we'll get to in the enterprise. But what I'd like to just highlight is have that flexibility as you go through, which leads us now to software development. I'm fortunate enough to work at a firm that is technically software that orchestrates infrastructure, but part of it is the flexibility of taking in these models. So Snowflake, while it has created an LLM that's used for text to SQL, make sure to be non-committal and really to be an operating system or a platform that you could bring your own model to it, or that we bring that model there. What does that mean? DeepSeek is already in private preview at Snowflake. Snowflake has access to Claude. What does this mean, right? What is a cloud data platform? What is Snowflake would be the way to say it. It's a beautiful thing when you're at a startup, because you could decide if you're going to be cloud focused or not out of the gates, right? Meaning you just go AWS, Salesforce, or HubSpot, whatever it may be that integrates it, like for your CRM, so you can track pipeline. And then you're like, oh, we need a consistent place to store data, right? And winds up being that you could use maybe Snowflake, or Databricks is probably another rather popular one, but you don't come out of the gate trying to orchestrate AWS Glue. You could, AWS Glue, Lambda, all these things. It just kind of comes down to the fact that you realize the fastest path to having a higher margin, to doing things faster, it's not human capital, it's technology and having things orchestrated, right? That to me is something that allows a startup to disrupt legacy businesses if there's already in a space or a market. So quicker access to external data, consistent viewing of your data across your enterprise so that you can figure out, and what I would pose is this a process that we should have? Is this a process that we should hire someone for? Yes or no? Two, to then build out that process. Three, but then also then see if they can lead the automation of that process, right? What would it take to do so that you can, and ultimately where the world is more than likely heading, have an agentic AI framework to pass some of these processes on to low cost code that execute them. It's almost the same as, if people may have been aware of RPA, robotic process automation. That was like the original way of like kind of going through and training humans. The challenge is that you'd have to update the RPA over and over and over again. There was no intelligence in it. Well, now there's intelligence in it, right? That's basically where we are at. Is the way to look at generative AI, and the way I look at generative AI and the way it comes out is, these are productivity tools of an insane force multiplier. If you want to spend the time and be intellectually curious about how to use them, how to learn to use them, and where they may go in. So it's an interesting time because you cannot keep up with the AI news. That's one running joke. The second running joke is, if you bet on a model, you probably lost, right? So the third part then winds up being, okay, the ones that wind up implementing this in certain spaces are going to have an unfair advantage versus the ones that do not.